There comes a time in every person's life when they have to decide, keep living on repeat or rewrite the script, and more often than not, the thing that's holding you back isn't some massive obstacle. It's the quiet, daily habits you keep choosing, the ones that drain your energy, steal your focus, and rob you of the future you say you want. Weak habits don't scream, they whisper, and before you know it, they've written the story of your life. Weak habits are the silent barriers to growth. They don't announce themselves loudly, and they rarely appear threatening. They hide behind routines, blend into comfort zones, and often feel like harmless indulgences. But over time, these habits become the slow drip that wears away at your discipline, your momentum, and your belief in what's possible. They seem small in the moment. A few extra minutes hitting snooze, another day postponing the workout, mindlessly scrolling instead of learning, procrastinating instead of executing. None of these choices seem like a big deal when they happen. But when repeated consistently, they quietly shape the direction of your life. The danger with weak habits is their invisibility. They feel normal because they've been around so long. They've been justified with phrases like "just this once," or "I'll start tomorrow." And because they don't create instant pain, they escape accountability. But growth isn't just blocked by failure, it's blocked by comfort, and weak habits are the protectors of comfort. They keep you stagnant while convincing you that you're just resting or waiting for the right time. In truth, they are the anchors holding you in place while your goals drift farther away. Weak habits are subtle thieves. They steal time, energy, and clarity. They delay your progress not by force, but by distraction. They blur your focus, lowering your standards without you realizing it. Before long, you're adapting to a lifestyle that accepts mediocrity simply because it's easier than making a change, and the worst part, you stop noticing how far you've drifted from the person you set out to become. Growth demands tension. It requires friction, effort, and sacrifice. It asks you to make choices that are often uncomfortable, but necessary. Weak habits avoid this process. They promise ease in the short term, but deliver regret in the long run. They trade your long-term progress for momentary relief, and every time you give in to them, you reinforce the idea that average is enough. That you're not capable of more. That change is too hard. But awareness changes everything. The moment you recognize that a habit isn't just harmless background noise, but a direct obstacle to your growth, you regain power. You start to question it. You start to challenge it. You realize that what you do repeatedly becomes who you are permanently, and that means every weak habit you tolerate becomes part of your identity unless you actively remove it. Replacing weak habits doesn't mean becoming perfect. It means becoming intentional. It means trading comfort for clarity, distraction for discipline, excuses for ownership. It means rewiring your day, moment by moment, to support who you want to be instead of who you've settled into being. That might mean waking up earlier, setting stronger boundaries, limiting screen time, or choosing to act instead of overthink. Small shifts lead to massive change when done consistently. Growth isn't about huge leaps. It's about the small wins that stack up because you decided to break free from patterns that once held you back. Weak habits will always feel easier. That's their trap. But strength is built when you choose the harder path for the right reason. When you make the decision, daily, to say no to what drains you and yes to what grows you, your future doesn't depend on a sudden breakthrough. It depends on what you do next. And if you want to evolve, if you want to become more than you are now, then start by paying attention to the habits that are silently keeping you small. Kill them, replace them, and watch your life start to rise not by chance but by choice. Transformation begins with honest self-reflection. Without it, change is surface, level, temporary, reactive, and disconnected from what truly matters. It's easy to chase improvement without understanding what needs to be healed, removed, or rebuilt. But until you're willing to take a raw, unfiltered look at yourself, growth will always be a struggle. Real transformation isn't about fixing a version of yourself to impress others. It's about aligning who you are with who you're meant to be. And that journey starts the moment you stop lying to yourself. We often avoid self-reflection because it makes us uncomfortable. It forces us to confront the parts of ourselves we'd rather ignore, the patterns we've justified, the excuses we've rehearsed, the habits we've normalized. It's far easier to point outward than to look inward. But blaming circumstances, other people, or bad luck never leads to growth. What does lead to growth is accountability. The willingness to say, this is on me. This is my responsibility, and I have the power to change it. Honest self-reflection is not self-judgment. It's not about shaming yourself for what you've done or haven't done. It's about clarity. It's about asking the hard questions without rushing to comforting answers. What am I avoiding? Where am I falling short of my own standards? Am I living in alignment with my values, or just going through the motions? These questions don't always have easy answers, but they open the door to truth. And truth is the foundation of change. You can't transform what you're unwilling to acknowledge. If you don't admit you're distracted, you'll never reclaim your focus. If you don't admit you're settling, you'll never raise your standards. If you don't admit you're afraid, you'll keep disguising your hesitation as waiting for the right time. Honest reflection shines a light on these internal blind spots. It doesn't promise comfort. It promises freedom. Because once you see the truth, you can stop being controlled by it and start acting on it. Transformation isn't about becoming someone different. It's about peeling back the layers of fear, ego, and habit that have hidden your best self. But that can only happen when you stop pretending, when you stop performing, when you're willing to face yourself in the mirror, not with criticism, but with the courage to ask, is this really who I want to be? And if the answer is no, then you don't need to feel shame. You need to feel urgency. The urgency to begin again, to realign, to rewrite the story while you still can. Self-reflection also helps you reconnect with your why. In the noise of everyday life, it's easy to forget why you started. You can lose sight of your deeper purpose, your core values, the vision you once believed in. But when you slow down long enough to reflect, you remember. You remember what you stand for. You remember what matters. And that clarity gives you fuel. It gives your choices meaning. It sharpens your focus and strengthens your resolve. Growth without reflection is unsustainable. It burns out. It feels hollow. But when you take time to look within, you're not just reacting. You're evolving. You're choosing intention over impulse, awareness over avoidance, truth over comfort, and that's what transformation really is. Not a moment, but a commitment to continually becoming more honest with yourself and more aligned with your highest self. So if you want change, start there, not with new goals, not with a louder voice, but with a deeper mirror. Look inside, ask better questions, and be brave enough to face the answers. That's how transformation begins. Not with noise, but with truth. Not with motivation, but with self-respect. And once you find that inner honesty, everything else starts to shift. Rebuilding starts by subtracting, not adding. The instinct, when life feels off track, is often to chase more habits, more productivity tools, more commitments, more noise, but more isn't always better. Sometimes it's the very weight of more that's keeping you stuck. Real growth, real clarity, and real strength often come not from accumulation, but from elimination. It begins when you decide to clear out what no longer serves you. The distractions, the unhealthy attachments, the draining routines, the outdated beliefs, these are the quiet barriers that crowd your capacity for change. Subtraction creates space, and in that space, you begin to breathe, to think, to move with intention. We live in a culture that glorifies addition. We're taught to believe that success lies in constant expansion. Add more tasks, more goals, more knowledge. But the truth is, we can't keep building on unstable foundations. You can't grow if you're stacking bricks on top of chaos. Before you can build the life you want, you need to remove everything that's getting in the way. That means facing what's cluttering your mind and your time. It means looking at your calendar, your habits, your relationships, and asking the hard question, is this helping me rise or holding me back? Subtraction is not about loss, it's about freedom. It's not about giving up, it's about making room. When you subtract what's not essential, what's left becomes clearer. You find out what actually matters. You stop wasting energy on things that look impressive but drain your soul. You let go of roles you're performing for approval, routines you're following out of obligation, and expectations you've inherited but never questioned. The rebuild doesn't start with more effort. It starts with less clutter. This process isn't always comfortable. Subtracting requires honesty. It forces you to confront your own patterns, your own distractions, and the parts of your life you've kept out of habit rather than intention. It might mean walking away from relationships that no longer align with your values. It might mean saying no more often, creating space in your day, and choosing stillness over stimulation. These aren't easy choices, but they're powerful ones, because each time you subtract something that's not serving you, you reclaim a piece of your energy, your clarity, your life. Simplicity is not a lack of ambition. It's a strategy. When your energy isn't being scattered, it can be focused. When your mind isn't overwhelmed, your decisions become sharper. When your day isn't packed with the unnecessary, you have room for what really matters. Subtraction makes your life lighter, and in that lightness, you gain momentum. You move forward with less friction, less noise, and less resistance. That's where change accelerates, not from trying to do everything, but from doing fewer things better. You don't need more tools, more tricks, or more time. You need less distraction, less self-doubt, less noise in your mind and your environment. Rebuilding your life doesn't happen by adding layers. It happens by peeling them back. Getting to the core of who you are and what you truly want. That's where the real strength is. That's where the real clarity begins. So before you reach for more, pause, look at what needs to go. What weight are you carrying that isn't yours anymore? What habits, mindsets, or commitments are stealing your peace? Subtract them. Not because they're inherently bad, but because they're no longer aligned. And once you do, you'll find something far more powerful than more. You'll find space. And in that space, you'll find yourself again. That's the true beginning of the rebuild. Killing weak habits reclaims personal power. Every day, the choices you make either reinforce your strength or slowly chip away at it. Weak habits are those choices that seem small, even harmless, but over time, they become patterns that limit who you are and who you're becoming. They show up as procrastination, excuses, overindulgence, lack of discipline, or settling for less. And while they don't always create immediate chaos, they quietly drain your confidence, clarity, and control. The longer they stay, the louder they become. The more you entertain them, the more they shape your identity. And eventually, you start believing you're someone who just can't change, but that's not true. Because the moment you decide to cut off those habits, you take back what's yours, your authority over your life. Personal power doesn't come from external success or motivation. It comes from the internal alignment between what you say you want and what you actually do. And that alignment is impossible when weak habits run the show. When you repeatedly choose short-term comfort over long-term growth, you tell yourself that ease matters more than excellence. That feeling good right now is worth more than becoming someone strong, resilient, and capable. But when you kill those habits, when you interrupt the cycle, you send yourself a different message. You say, I'm in charge now. You prove to yourself that you don't have to be a prisoner to your patterns. You remind yourself that discipline isn't punishment, it's a declaration that your life matters. Reclaiming your power starts with awareness. You have to recognize which habits are stealing your momentum. Maybe it's staying up too late and waking up tired. Maybe it's endlessly scrolling when you should be learning, building, or resting. Maybe it's talking about change instead of doing the hard work of transformation. These habits feel safe. They feel familiar, but they are the comfort zone's camouflage. Easy to ignore, easy to justify, but heavy with consequences. They cost you your time, your energy, and your trust in yourself. And if you don't kill them, they will quietly kill your progress. But something powerful happens when you start choosing better, when you decide not to hit snooze, when you turn off distractions, when you hold yourself accountable instead of blaming your situation. These aren't just better habits. They are acts of self-respect. They are the daily victories that remind you of who you are and what you're capable of. Each time you override a weak impulse, you strengthen your will. Each time you do what's necessary instead of what's easy, you build character. And with each small win, your power returns, not in a loud explosion, but in steady, unshakable confidence. This isn't about being perfect. It's about being responsible. It's about choosing integrity over indulgence. It's about aligning your habits with your highest potential, not your lowest cravings. Killing weak habits isn't a single decision. It's a daily one. A process, a practice, but every time you choose growth over comfort, you reclaim a part of yourself that you once gave away, and over time you stop chasing power. You embody it. Your future is being built in your habits. Not in your goals, not in your dreams, but in the choices you repeat when no one is watching. So if you want to become unstoppable, start by removing what weakens you. Cut it off, replace it, and watch how your mind, your actions, and your entire life begin to rise. Because when the weak habits die, the strong self is born, and that self doesn't beg for power, it walks in it. Consistency matters more than perfection. In a world that glorifies quick wins and flawless execution, it's easy to forget that real progress is built in quiet, repeated effort. Perfection is often an illusion, something people chase but rarely achieve. It becomes a trap, convincing you that if something can't be done perfectly, it's not worth doing at all. But that mindset kills momentum. It paralyzes action. It feeds procrastination and self-doubt. On the other hand, consistency embraces imperfection. It understands that showing up, even when conditions aren't perfect, is where the transformation begins. The truth is, success isn't reserved for the most talented or the most gifted. It belongs to those who keep going, day in and day out, even when motivation fades, even when progress is slow, even when no one is watching. Consistency doesn't require brilliance. It just requires commitment, doing the small things well again and again until they become second nature. That's how habits are formed. That's how character is built. And that's how goals are eventually reached, not by giant leaps, but by steady steps forward. Perfection often brings pressure. It says you must do everything right or you've failed, that you need the ideal plan, the perfect timing, or flawless execution to be worthy. But consistency brings freedom. It says you don't have to be perfect. You just have to be present. It gives you room to learn, to adjust, and to grow. Because when you're consistent, mistakes don't derail you. They become part of the process. Every misstep becomes a lesson. Every setback becomes an opportunity to strengthen your resilience. It's easy to be inspired in the beginning, easy to commit when the energy is high. But consistency shows up when inspiration fades, when the work feels boring or thankless, when progress seems invisible. That's the moment most people quit, not because they aren't capable, but because they were chasing perfection instead of building consistency. And that's why those who endure, the ones who keep showing up, keep doing the work, and keep refining their craft, eventually rise. They understand that the results don't come from intensity alone. They come from endurance. Consistency compounds. It multiplies effort over time. A little bit of discipline practiced daily is more powerful than a burst of effort followed by silence. Reading 10 pages a day beats bin. Learning once a month. Training 3 times a week beats one intense session every 2 weeks. Writing for 20 minutes a day creates more than waiting for the perfect idea to strike. Small actions done repeatedly stack into something much bigger. That's the invisible edge. That's the compound interest of self-improvement. The beauty of consistency is that it doesn't demand perfection. It only asks for presence. It rewards you for trying, for learning, and for not giving up. And the longer you stay in the game, the more you evolve, your skills sharpen, your mindset strengthens, your self-trust deepens. Over time, you start to realize that what felt hard yesterday now feels natural. And that's not because of one perfect day, it's because of many imperfect ones that you didn't walk away from. You don't need to be perfect to make progress. You need to be consistent, to show up when it's hard, to keep going when it's slow, to trust that your small daily efforts are building something meaningful, even if you can't see the results yet. That's the real path to growth. That's the real edge that separates those who dream from those who achieve. Not perfection, not luck. Just quiet, relentless, imperfect consistency. The strongest version of you already exists beneath the noise. It's not something you need to invent or borrow. It's not dependent on achievements, titles, or how others see you. It's already there, steady, powerful, and waiting. But over time, it's been buried under layers of doubt, distractions, expectations, and noise. The world is loud with opinions, comparisons, and endless demands that tell you who you should be. That noise can drown out your instincts. It can make you forget your own voice, your own values, and your own power. But the truth is, that strongest version of you doesn't disappear, it gets quiet. And you find it again not by chasing more, but by listening deeper. The noise comes in many forms. It's the voice that says you're not enough unless you achieve more. It's the habit of comparing your life to someone else's highlight reel. It's the pressure to be perfect, the fear of failure, and the lie that you have to prove your worth. All of that clouds your clarity. It makes you doubt your path. It pulls you away from your purpose. But beneath all of it is a version of you that's unshaken. One that's already built with resilience, integrity, courage, and wisdom. You don't have to create it. You just have to uncover it. That uncovering starts with stillness, with stepping back from the chaos and choosing to be present. In silence, you hear what's true. In stillness, you remember who you are. When you strip away the layers of overthinking, of doing for the sake of doing, of constantly proving yourself, you start to reconnect with the version of you that moves with purpose, not pressure, that speaks with conviction, not fear, that acts with intention, not impulse. Your strongest self isn't defined by your past mistakes or present circumstances. It's not about never falling. It's about always getting back up. It's the part of you that doesn't quit, even when the process is hard. The part that knows your worth isn't tied to anyone's approval. The part that endures, adapts, and rises again and again. That self is always within reach, but it requires your attention. You won't find it in distraction. You won't find it in trying to meet the world's expectations. You find it when you go inward, when you start letting go of what doesn't serve you. Sometimes we look outside for strength because we've forgotten what's inside. We chase inspiration, motivation, validation, hoping something external will ignite us. But the fire is already there. It's been burning quietly, waiting for you to believe in it again. The work is not in becoming someone else. It's in removing the noise that's been blocking who you already are. That noise will always exist in the world, but you don't have to carry it inside. You can choose what you listen to. You can choose what you believe, and you can choose to live in a way that aligns with the truth of who you are, not the image others want you to maintain. Strength is not about being loud or aggressive. It's about being grounded. It's about being clear. It's about standing firm in your values, your vision, and your truth, even when the world tries to shake you. So trust this. The strongest version of you isn't out there waiting to be discovered. It's already within you, quiet, capable, whole. The challenge is not to find it. It's to uncover it, to remove the noise, the fear, the false stories, and let that strength rise to the surface. That's where your power lies. That's where your transformation begins. And the more you live from that place, the more unstoppable you become. The strongest version of you is not something distant or unreachable. It's already inside, waiting patiently beneath the noise and distractions of life. The journey isn't about becoming someone new, but about shedding the layers that hide your true self. When you choose to quiet the chaos, face your fears, and reconnect with your core, you reclaim your power and live with clarity and purpose. Remember, strength is not about loudness or perfection. It's about being grounded in your truth and showing up consistently as your authentic self. Trust in that inner strength, nurture it, and watch how it transforms your life from the inside out.